One of my favorite things about Ben is that anytime I go on a trip without him and he's picking me up from the airport, he always makes sure that the car is stocked with water and snacks because I'll probably be hungry. And then most of the time he asks if I want to go to In-N-Out and we drive straight there. So when he recently had to go back home to Iowa for a last-minute family emergency, I knew I wanted to return the favor. Luckily, everything's okay now, but I know that he's pretty stressed out. And that's on top of the stress that we've both been feeling since the beginning of the year, as I'm sure many others can relate to. So lately I've been making it a routine to make beef stew every couple of weeks because what's more comforting than beef stew? So I ended up making this whole plan to make a big pot of beef stew and some fresh homemade sourdough, and to pack up a bowl of that and to bring it directly to the airport when I picked him up because he was coming in on a really late flight. My plan kind of started off on a bad foot because my sourdough was overproofed and it didn't rise the way that I wanted it to. But at the same time, I think people kind of make too big of a deal about their sourdough, and fresh bread is fresh bread. Then I biked to the store to get some groceries before going into the garden and grabbing some fresh herbs. And my sage has not been looking great, I think because of the weather, but it still smelled really good, so I used it anyway. And I do get this really specific sense of satisfaction when I make a dish that includes parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, because my mom would always sing that song when I was a kid, and I never realized that those herbs actually went well together. For the beef itself, I usually go with chuck, but I decided to splurge and get some bone-in shank because I wanted it to be really tender and silky. I seared the meat and then added in some celery, onions, and carrots, and sauteed those before adding in some tomato paste, red wine, Worcestershire sauce, and ketchup, which I might get some hate for, but it's really good, trust me. Oh, and a dash of soy sauce too. And then I cooked everything low and slow, I think like too low because it took like 5 hours. And then I added some carrots and potatoes, and the end result was so good. And finally, after almost 2 days of cooking, I was so excited to bring Ben his little bowl of stew, only to find out that his flight was delayed, so he missed his connection and had to stay in Chicago.